Hey, welcome back, students. In this lesson, I want to go ahead and introduce stoichiometry to you. There are two different types of stoichiometry that we deal with in chemistry. One of them has to do with the mass of the elements in a compound, and we call that composition stoichiometry. And so here we have the definition for composition stoichiometry. This is the kind of stoichiometry that deals with the mass relationships within a compound. Then the other type of stoichiometry that we're going to deal with is called reaction stoichiometry. And here's the definition of reaction stoichiometry. Notice if you pay attention to these two types of stoichiometries, composition stoichiometry deals with the relationship of the mass inside a particular compound. So this is going to be within one compound. Okay. So for example, let's say that we were dealing with NaCl. Composition stoichiometry only is going to look at the mass of, say, for instance, the sodium atom in this compound or the chlorine atom in this compound. Whereas reaction stoichiometry is going to be looking at the relationship of the mass of an entire compound on one side of the equation versus the mass of another compound on the product side. Okay, and so that's going to be very different mass relationships between these two types of stoichiometry. And it's very important that you tell the difference between the two, because the stoichiometry of a compound is very different than the stoichiometry of a reaction involving products and reactants, simply because of the amount of mass involved with a compound relative to the mass involved with a particular atom in a compound. It's a subtle little difference, but there is a difference nonetheless. Another way of looking at this would be if we take for example, let me erase this. We're going to take a look at composition stoichiometry first. It's kind of like, for composition stoichiometry, it's kind of like taking that example that I gave you, NaCl, and looking at the mass of sodium versus the mass of chlorine. That's essentially what we're doing here. It's the relationship between the elements inside this one compound. Whereas in the other type of stoichiometry, this reaction stoichiometry, it would be the equivalent of kind of doing the following. Say we had another compound over here, lithium chloride. Here's the one compound, and we're looking at the sodium chloride, and we look at the compound over here on the right hand side, which is in the product side of lithium chloride, and it would be taking the mass of NaCl on the left hand side versus the mass of the entire compound, lithium chloride, on the right. Notice that the mass of sodium chloride is going to be a large number relative to the lithium chloride, and this is going to be extremely big compared to individual atoms such as sodium or chlorine in the composition style stoichiometry. So it is a subtle difference, and so just to make sure that you understand these, again, make sure you go back, rewind the video here if you need to a couple of times and read this again. But essentially, stoichiometry that involves composition stoichiometry is the relationship of the mass of the elements in one compound, and reaction stoichiometry is going to be the mass relationship of the compounds in a reaction. So hopefully that was helpful for you. Go ahead and watch the next couple of videos where we'll go ahead and explain mole ratios and learn and show you how to do actual stoichiometry type problems.